I have two jobs this morning. They are, number one, to introduce the concept of accelerators, which of course is worth a whole day to introduce it. And second, to talk about my own little acceleration effort. So the most important thing, and it fits with the being here at a university where, no, people are not online, they're actually living together. If you want to have a great idea, you probably come up with it as a sole inventor. But if you want to go far, if you want persistent acceleration, you have to go together, whether that's an entrepreneur building a team or a team being surrounded with an accelerator. Big change does not happen with single people. But what also you need, besides the idea and the person, is often a new business model helps accelerate things. So we started with the commerce-free, government-funded internet. It was a technical infrastructure, and it was for scientists. Then one guy from Digital Equipment sent out an email inviting people to a sales seminar. And he got jumped on. How disgusting, using this beautiful internet for disgusting commercial efforts. But as you know, that has changed. And it was the commercial energy and all these little accelerating people and startups that actually turned the internet into what we know today. I was chairman of ICANN, and we used to have a controlled set of domain names. I would argue that the internet has now become a protection racket, where instead of just protecting your bar, you're now protecting each domain name is protected in 5 or 6 or 18 different separate TLDs, .info, .biz, .gov, .us. So in other words, acceleration doesn't always lead to the best things. And I'm giving you an example of what I saw last week. This is an ad for a very innovative new app. You turn it on when you're planning to go out drinking, and it prevents you from sending stupid texts. So I'm an investor. This is probably going to be very successful, but I have a hard time getting excited. Back to the concept of acceleration. Another form of acceleration, another, if you like, engine of acceleration, is this shift from one-offs, from giant rockets, government-funded, or big mainframes, to a very different world. This is a standard pricing list from a company called Nanoracks. I'm an investor, full disclosure, and what we offer is standard pricing to put your space experiment in space. We're kind of like retailing shelf space in spacecraft. That's what accelerates experiments in space, going from giant monoliths to retail, from giant computers to PCs, and now to iPhones and watches and everything else. And just wanted to give you the cosmonaut beauty shot and transition to my own journey to accelerating the production of health. So that's me. Interestingly, space travel is in fact a combination, or space training. I didn't go up, just to be clear. I trained as a backup cosmonaut to Charles Simonyi. What you learn in space training is, number one, space plumbing. How to fix the air exchanger, how to fix the toilet, how to find things that get lost. They're always on the air intake module because they float and float until they get sucked to the air intake module. And medicine, because the thing that is most precious that we send into space is bodies. That got me more and more interested in health and healthcare. I was going to be a judge for the Healthcare X Prize. For whatever reason, it never happened. But I kept thinking more and more about health as a fundamentally more interesting problem. The internet, let's face it, it was accelerating fine, and it continues to do so without me. But healthcare is fundamentally a repair job. Very expensive to fix things once they're broken. So I began to think, this doesn't make sense. We all know this, what matters to health. How many of you had a healthy breakfast? Well, a few more than the number of students, at least. How many of you stayed up too late last night? Okay. What matters to health, 90% is our behavior and what surrounds us. What we spend on is healthcare, much more than other societies. And what we get for it, we're getting pretty good at dealing with cancer, with, we're prolonging life, but we're not really improving the quality of that life. The green is the good part, late stage interventions, but we've got more obesity, more asthma, more inflammatory diseases, and the problem can't be solved by fixing it afterwards. We need to start at the beginning. So I started looking at the quantified self. I'm wearing a couple of these things, and that was really exciting. But I began to realize that it's not simply a matter of individual behavior. And I thought somebody should take that idea and do an X Prize for health. I was about to give a talk on that. Someone else should do something. Okay. I discovered, that's a really lousy talk. So in order to give a better talk, I announced that I would do essentially a clinical trial for this idea of if you could really create a community that was healthy, it would produce health and save on all those healthcare costs, but more than that, make people healthy. And here we come to, again, this issue of scale. Fixing the healthcare system, the government's trying to do that. They're making some progress. They're changing payment models. But it's really like peeing into a reservoir. I don't know if you know, 2 years ago, someone did that. They emptied the entire reservoir. And the scientists said, this is crazy, that one person in this reservoir, no impact. And besides, what do the birds do? So we have this bottomless reservoir of things that cause bad health. The scale is wrong. We can't fix that. And what I decided to do was to try this out in 5 small places where the scale is right. You can, and so here's the design of this clinical trial. With my CEO, we put out applications for small communities, under 100,000 each, fewer resources required, fewer moving parts, much easier to collect data if you have a discrete community, and much easier to have an impact because people can't go to, they can't go from Newark to Brooklyn or Hoboken to get an unhealthy meal if you're serving healthy meals in these communities. So 100,000 people or fewer, geographically distributed, demographically distributed. We got, to our amazement, 42 applications. One was a doctor in Georgia who thought we were handing out money, but the other 41 were real. Visited 10 of them and picked the ones you see here: Clatsop County, Oregon, Lake County, California, Niagara Falls, New York, Spartanburg, South Carolina, and Greater Muskegon, Michigan. And we got to work trying to accelerate those communities' efforts to produce health. It wasn't a nice white lady from New York coming in and telling people how to live. It was local people who wanted to produce health, but they wanted help from outside. And salespeople from Pfizer don't call on Lake County. Investment bankers don't help the people in Clatsop County construct social investment bonds. So we became, in essence, an in situ accelerator for these 5 communities. Our core constituents are the kids. The grown-ups, the healthcare system is beginning to reform by itself. They're getting these financial incentives from the government. They want to save money and be rewarded for returning people to health. But getting the children healthy, keeping them healthy is much harder. And the parents may have given up for themselves, but they still care about their kids. That's what inspires people, and that's frankly what gets them to think long term. So, school food, early childhood education, helping to avoid adverse childhood experiences which can damage you for the rest of your lives. Because these, our core constituents, can turn into this. Often not because they were born bad, but because they encountered bad circumstances. Not just bad food, but bad parenting, neglect, broken homes, whatever. And you may have heard about hospital readmission, but in the 2 years since I've been doing this, I've also discovered jail readmission. Big problem. The people being readmitted to hospital are, they're nice. They're grandmothers with heart problems. The people being readmitted to jail may or may not be nice. But again, if you can catch them when they leave, if you can. So I'm sitting in Spartanburg next to a guy in a uniform at one of the meetings we have when we go visit. And I asked him, so what are you doing here? He says, well, ma'am, I'm Neil Urch. I'm the deputy sheriff in charge of the local jail. We discovered we got the same clients as the mental health system, but we weren't connecting to them. So now we are. And that's what makes a difference when you get a community together. So the idea here is what may look like government interference when Mayor Bloomberg does it and tries to stop you from buying large sodas, looks like collective action in a small community. And our mission is to make that happen and show what it looks like. We also want to have a business model. If we can't make it profitable for large companies who have the distribution, the logistics, the purchasing power, the economies of scale, in fact, the ability to accelerate, if we can't make it healthy for them to produce and sell, if we can't make it profitable for them to produce and sell healthy food, this is not going to happen. So we are reaching out not just to the medical system, not even just to the jails, but actually to the business world that in the end accelerates so much of what happens to make these healthy places. And the final thing is evaluation. Not just did you do a good or bad job, but did you achieve what you were looking for? And in the end, our mission really is not these 5 small communities. These 5 small communities, their mission is to become healthy. Our mission is to accelerate that, and we believe the very best way to accelerate the production of health is to show that it works. Scientists know that it works. It works in clinical trials. But so far, it doesn't really work in reality. So I hope to come back to Monmouth University 5 years from now. This is a 5-community, 5-year clinical trial, and tell you that we have produced 5 healthy places. And if the people in Clatsop County and Niagara Falls could do it, so can everyone. That's the value of acceleration. Thank you very much.